Hey, this is David McLaughlin. Thank you for listening to the Modern Leader podcast today. I'd like to ask you a favor, but don't worry, it's free. If you can do us the favor of wherever you listen to this podcast, whether it's YouTube or Apple or Spotify or Amazon or wherever else, if you can go out there and rate it for us, just give us a nice high rating. And if you even better, leave a comment telling what you love about the show, that really helps us and it doesn't cost you a dime. Okay, let's get to the program. You're going to love Erin O'Malley. Every time we get together and talk, we always end up, one, just going all over the place, and two, just having so much fun and laughing and commiserating. And it's so much fun. Erin is a customer service expert. She's really a communications expert. And I wanted to talk to her about customer service today. And she has a great model. So if you are in customer service or lead customer service people, I highly recommend you hanging in and listen to this episode. You are going to love her. Get ready for Erin O'Malley, the modern leader. Erin O'Malley is a leadership advisor and communication expert. She helps growth minded leaders build cultures of connection to retain and inspire both their teams and customers. She works with leaders and organizations all the way from the front line up to the C suite. I don't know what the T suite is, but I'm sure you do that as well.
Watch that.
Teaching them to redefine perceived problems with leadership, engagement, and loyalty and focus on the real issue, which is usually communication. Through her workshops and keynotes, Erin guides people leaders in how to communicate to inspire, engage, and resolve issues. She's worked with some heavy hitters such as Delta Airlines, Dollar Tree, BMW North America, Goodwill, the Kennedy Center, Amgen Pharmaceuticals, and many, many more, training over 10,000 people in her illustrious career. This is my favorite part of your bio. While she currently calls Neptune Beach, Florida home, she will always identify as a Jersey girl. Erin, Jersey girl, O'Malley, welcome.
Thanks, David. I'm so excited to be here. I always have to, I start all my intros with that disclaiming because then when I start hand talking or if bad words come out of my mouth, I'm like, it's the Jersey in me, people. I can't help myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to shy away from it, but now I fully embrace it.
Yeah. I must be from Jersey somewhere in my background because I have the hand talkings in the language as well. So yeah. So you and I met through our mutual friend Greg Hawks. He comes up a lot on this program.
That
Um, he's that kind of guy. And I I went all the way to Jacksonville, Florida, just to meet you, and you bailed out on me and didn't meet. That's not true. I was actually on vacation, but Greg
that's right.
said you should
I
connect with
remember
me
that.
while you're there. Yeah, you had some family in or something going on, but yeah, we've actually never met in person, but we've been online with each other numerous times, and I just always love your vibe and have been looking forward to having you on the program.
I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I feel like we're those people that could talk for 75 years. So we'll try and keep this podcast under an hour, but we got plenty to say.
That's right. And usually, Greg has us, you and me, and some other people critiquing other people's talks. Like he likes our thoughts on how to present and talk, and so he brings us in to help other people talk more gooder. So it's always fun with you.
I know, and I always feel like that's one of my favorite things to do, by the way. And also, I always feel like you and I, like 80%, 85% of our suggestions are totally like, I'm like, yes. But then
Yeah.
you always come up with like 15% that I'm like, oh, good catch. So I feel like we're super aligned. And then there's always like the bonus learn that I get from you too.
Yeah, I feel the same way about you. When you say that 15% that's different, I'm like, oh, well, that's a good point. And a lot of times I remember I'll tell people, there's not always a definite right or wrong in these things. Do what works for you, but Erin has a good point, or I disagree with Erin on this one. So, and I love that we have that relationship where we can say that to each other. That's fun.
Totally.
All right. Let's talk about you, Erin O'Malley. Tell us a little bit about you, your background. Usually the way I phrase this is, how did you get here? Uh, how did you get from like where'd you grow up, Jersey, and how did you land to what you're doing now?
I'm gonna say this, and we're gonna go back to seventh grade, which at this point is a long time ago, but I really, I, I go back to a trip that we took to in seventh grade. I grew up in New York first until fourth grade, and so we had this sailboat. We would sail on the Long Island Sound. So many of my childhood memories are of me and my family on our little red sailboat. It's called McGarricle, named for Megan, my sister. Meg for Megan, Eri for Aaron, and Carl for Michael. So it was our three names combined. So seventh grade, we went on a trip to the Caribbean, and I remember getting off the plane, and I was like, I am not in Jersey anymore. Like that, the hit of
Yeah.
the humidity, and I'm like, oh, not everyone's like white people from the suburbs, you know? And one day we were sitting on the beach, and this little girl came up to us and was like rubbing, and my hair used to be like actually more natural, blondie blonde, and she just
Yeah.
came up and was like, can I touch your hair? And she was rubbing my hair and just like feeling it because it was just different, you know? And
Yeah.
we ended up hanging out on the beach with this girl all afternoon. And that that trip inspired me to be like, I want to travel. And then I wrote one of my essays to get into college was that there should be a free cruise ship that sails around the world, like kind of like a hop on, hop off bus, but it's a cruise ship.
Yeah.
Because if everyone just went around and met everyone, like the world would be a whole lot better place. And I'm now like, could I be more Pollyanna? But I'm also like, or could it be a better idea? The answer is no. And so with that, I went to James Madison University, studied hospitality and tourism management because I'm like, there's hotels and restaurants all over the world. But that
Yeah.
actually brought me to Chicago and Maine for the first 10 years of my career and a few other spots along the way, managing restaurants. Then when I turned 30, I said, I don't want to do this crap anymore, weekends, nights, drama. And so
Right.
I kind of got back to my travel, wanting to make a difference roots, and I joined the Peace Corps. So I was in Panama for 2 years and then came
A
back.
what?
What'd you say?
A what? You were a what?
The Peace Corps. I was in
Yeah.
volunteer.
You
Wait,
said it sounded like you said piano for or something like that.
oh, I was in Panama. I
Oh,
was,
Panama. Okay.
I was like,
I thought it was some position in the Peace Corps called a piano for. I was like, I've never heard that. Okay, you were
I was
in
like,
Panama. Gotcha. Sorry.
I'm like, David, you can't ask me what I say because once it comes out of my mouth, I have no recollection. Anyway, we're about to land this plane. So then for the past, so the threads were this like travel, human connection, what makes people's work. Plus, in my restaurant management days, I would always be the one training and developing the leaders and developing the other managers. So there's like, those are the two through lines. And then when I got back from Panama, I was a training manager for Hilton. And then I was like, screw these corporate people. I'm going to go out on my own. And so that's what I've been doing. I did some contract work with those other companies, but then it was 8 years ago that I was like, I'm teaching my own stuff. I might as well just do it by my own
Yeah.
self. And so
Yeah.
training, facilitating, speaking about human connection and communication and travel. And so, yeah, it started back in seventh grade, but it's interesting to see, like, it's interesting when those moments that I tie so much back to my travels and that opening up my eyes up to a whole new world.
Yeah. What a great story. And when you were talking about there should be a cruise ship that just travels around the world, I couldn't agree more. That's fantastic. I've been seeing these like social media memes. I can't remember exactly the way it's worded, but it's something to the idea of the more you travel, the more it opens up your mind and the less biased you are and you understand humanity better. And I think that's so true because people who don't travel, whether it's out of their city, out of their state, out of their country, whatever, you're missing something by not getting out and seeing what's out in the world.
I 100% agree. And I will say, I met my husband and I was in New Mexico. We met in Santa Fe and then we moved back to the East Coast. This was after I got back from the Peace Corps. And we were in, as my husband said, we were in Western North Carolina. So as he said, we were in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of nowhere. And I actually joined the Toastmasters group there. And we'll just say it was it's kind of like the home of the Tea Party, like very conservative,
Yeah.
very like God's country. And I rolled in there and they're like, I remember this one lady kept being like, "You're not from this side of the Mason-Dixon line." And I was like, "Correct, right?" But one of the talks I did for one of my 5-minute Toastmasters talks was what it was like being a Jersey girl and like
Yeah.
what people think it is and then what it really is. And afterwards they were like, "We had no idea." And I'm like, right. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always that subtle sarcasm with a lot of what I
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
but joking aside, genuinely, because I'm like, we all judge, right? Like we all have our
Yeah.
assumptions, and once you go to that place, once you meet the people, you're like, oh, again, it's so cliche, but I think it's so true. We're not as different as we think, you know. And so, yeah, it always seems to be, and I catch I mean, I just did it there, right? Like judging the God's country people. God
Yeah.
bless them, but like, you know,
Right.
they opened up my eyes too to that
Yeah.
to their way of living, you know.
Right. Right. So we're going to talk about customer service, and you have a talk you do called Deflate, Relate, Elevate. And I always worry I don't get those in the right order, but I think that's it. Deflate, Relate, Elevate. But before we do, I want to ask you one question, and that is, being a Jersey girl, how close is the Jersey Shore series to the Jersey experience?
Don't make me hang up on you right now. It's completely not. First of all of those people were from New York. Second of
Right.
all, there is the shore. But I was from more like the central Jersey, which is a whole nother controversy because people are like, there is no central Jersey. There is. So no, it was fabricated. And I mean, no, please. They're
Yeah.
all New Yorkers. That's what I'm
That, that
saying.
that's what I expected, and I had a feeling you wouldn't have a lot of nice things to say about that. But I just wanted to get that on the official record. You're now on the record. Okay. So we haven't had anybody on this program that I can recall where we talked a lot about customer service. And I love that idea because I worked at a company for 18 years where they were, first word that comes to my mind is violent in a good way. Like they were violent about customer service. Like, and that's
Okay.
probably just the absolute wrong word. They were hyper focused on service. And what it did was over the course of my tenure there, it ruined me when I go everywhere else. Because before I didn't really know what good service was. Then not only did I learn what good service was, I started helping teach, good service. And then I go out and I just see nothing but horrible service everywhere. And I hate to be the guy that stands on his lawn like, get off my lawn, kids these days. But man, service is just getting worse and worse and worse. I experienced it twice today and it goes all over me. How did you talked about your hotel and restaurant, that type of management? What was it that really got you turned on about customer service?
I think so. My first real job was at Uncle Julio's Hacienda on North and Clybourne in Chicago, which actually closed down last year, which was, I cried. It was in like 1997, people, it was like 30 years ago, and I still was like, what's happening? Anyway, and I was super eager and I was super, so you work through a management, like I was a hostess and then a server and then a bartender, like as part of the management training program. So you go through all the positions, and then when they send you off to Texas for 2 weeks, and like then you come back and you're a manager, which FYI, that's not how it works, people. And
Right.
I remember, I mean, and then the place was chaos, like in a good way, right? Like we
Yeah.
called it the $1 million taco stand. Like it was just like always busy. And I remember like customers would complain. Of course, they would have a few margaritas in them, and then they'd
Yeah.
start complaining, right? This isn't this and this isn't that. And we did a training, probably like 6 months into me being a manager. We did this training on this book called Knock Your Socks Off Service. And I think the
Yeah.
book like 50 pages long, but
Yeah.
one of the concepts was the customer isn't always right, but they're always the customer. And that
Yeah.
was one of those like life-changing concepts for me, not to be dramatic, but true. Because I remember being like, yeah, like people would be like, oh, we ordered their enchiladas. And I'd be like, these are enchiladas. And they're like, no, we wanted like the sizzling steak. And I'm like, that's fajitas, you dum-dum, right? But I can't say that because the customer's always right. But I was like, no, actually, they're wrong. So once I learned it's like so freeing to be like, no, they're wrong, but they're still the customer, right? Like, but we
Right.
still need to like not call them dum-dums, you know?
Yeah.
So when I learned that, and honestly, that is when that red balloon analogy came to me because I remember it's always like, well, before I get going on my deflate relate elevate, I'll finish answering the question. It became my favorite thing because things are going to go wrong, right? Like even if people are good at service, things are going to go wrong, right? Like you're going to get an order wrong, you're going to drop a drink on someone. And it became my favorite thing to go into deflate, relate, and elevate. I wasn't calling it that then, but like, and turn it around and have people be like, oh my God, thank you. And it was also my secret goal, because as mentioned, I always have an undercurrent of like shenanigans. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
not buying people anything. Like, I am not comping their meal, you know?
Right. Right.
And it was always the people, I would reward the people with good behavior. Where they're like, oh, everything's great. I'm like, let me buy you a round of drinks, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was sort of my mission to like turn it around without having to buy stuff.
Yeah.
And I genuinely would like, again, not seek out the people that were upset, but the servers knew if they had an upset customer, I was the manager to deal with it. And there's just something satisfying about when someone's having a no good, very bad, whatever it is day to be like, hey, let me put a smile on your face, you know?
Right.
So I think that's where the obsession started of like, we can turn this around.
I love that. Okay, so we can go into each of these deeper, but tell us what deflate, relate, and elevate is. And you mentioned the red balloon. Tell us about this a concept.
So deflate, and here I have an interpretive dance, so it'll help you remember the order. So we deflate the air out of the balloon, and I always use this. I have this. I can't believe I don't have one blown up because normally I have a prop ready. We're deflating the balloon with curious listening. Like, so we're letting the people get all the air out. Because if you think about it, and we'll stick with the restaurant examples, right? Like they're sitting there and they're like, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. I mean, that's all the things that might have happened to them. But I'm like, what is it really about? Like, they're hungry. Like,
Right.
so I'm like, let me go get you some chips and salsa, and then we can finish having this conversation to get the edge off, right? So a lot of times I love the red balloon analogy because we all have our stuff going on, but it's like, what is it really about? So we have to let them get all of that air out before we can move on with the conversation. Then we relate to them. So looking them eye to eye, standing shoulder to shoulder with empathy. And we can talk about empathy because I have a different take on it than the old cliche of walking in people's shoes. Oh yeah, you know.
I quote you all the time actually on empathy. Yeah.
And so
We'll dig into that.
Okay, we're relating to them with empathy. So this is when we feel before we fix. And normally we jump in with oh, I'm so sorry. And I think this is what you hear all the time. Like, we apologize for the inconvenience. We're so sorry. And I'm like, you're not sorry. You don't care, right? So we relate to them with empathy. And it's also, the memo also has gone out on this. So now you'll have people be like, I understand that you're upset. And I'm like, no, you're reading a script, right? Like, be real with it and be like, hey, this is annoying and this is frustrating. I hear you, I got you. And then we elevate the conversation by asking questions. What can we do to make this better? What can we do to resolve this? How can we solve this problem together? And then, is there anything else that we can do for you? No, you're great. And then that's it. So deflate, relate, and elevate.
Love it. Okay. Let's talk about deflate because I think this is, I love the order you have them in. I think it's perfectly right. And deflating is a critical step that most people miss. It seems like the first thing they do is they just go straight to trying to resolve the problem, or maybe they relate and then try to elevate. But the deflating is a key component of this. Tell us more about that.
I think the biggest thing is the curiosity, right? And we're told to actively listen. And I can get going on this too. The whole like act listening head nod. And But what's really, and I did it in the introduction, right? We have these assumptions, these judgments, and these stories and these narratives. Like that's what we're listening, like we're filtering. I can't believe I'm not prepared with my construction paper head that I have this big head with big emoji ears with these words in it. And because that's how we listen. And so I always talk about how instead of all this active listening, and again, active listening, you know what it's like. Like there's this one right when people do it, and you're like, they're not listening. They're like, is this a long story? Hurry up. You know, like I don't have to hear you. Or then they do like the big one with the big eye roll on the head nod, and really they're just like, hurry up so I can solve your problem. Hurry up so I can give you advice. Like we're always, I have a better story than you, right? So it's all of this
Right.
inner activity that we need to get rid of. And I say we replace all of that with wonder, right? In the deflating the balloon, we're asking three questions. I wonder what this is really about. I wonder what they're feeling. And I wonder who they are. Like, what is their identity? And that one is more like if it's let's say it's an older, this situation came up last week in a workshop. It's an older, more seasoned boss, we'll say, manager, with a younger person trying to give them feedback. And so
Yeah.
if we're listening to them, who is their identity? They're identifying as a senior person with lots of experience. And now they've got some young whippersnapper telling them what to do. So with
Yeah.
that in mind, right, we're not going to take it personally when that guy pushes back. We're like, oh, he's an old dude that's stuck in his ways, right? So like it's identifying them. And with those three things, we full picture when we're deflating the balloon. That's what we're listening for, those three things.
I, I love the concept of curiosity. It's a personal passion of mine. And it's actually one of my values is my core values. One of them is curiosity. So let's talk about those three things for a minute. I I love curiosity and I love digging into this. Let's use the idea that you're a customer service person, maybe in like a retail environment. Maybe somebody wants to come in they want a refund, and maybe your refund policy isn't jiving with what they want to do. Walk us through how those three questions can help someone through that situation. What does that look like?
Well, I think it is when if they come in there, like they're coming in hot. So this would be if they come in and they're like, you know what? I've returned things before and it hasn't been a problem in the past. And now I talked to someone earlier and they said that I couldn't do it. So then I talked to someone else and they said I could. And you guys seem very confused. And you know what? Like, I've got other things to do with my time than to come back in here and be on the phone with you guys all the time. So like that is a quintessential deflating of the balloon, right? And so I think what we're listening for that is like what's really going on and what are they feeling? And to me, I would say, well, what like how was I feeling in that? Like how would you describe what I was feeling in a word? What would you say?
Frustrated.
Yeah, right? And then why was I feel like what was going on that was frustrating to me?
You're hearing different things from different people, and you don't know really what the policy is. All you know is you want it fixed.
Right. So I'm listening to that. I'm like, okay, this person, what are they feeling and why are they feeling that way? They're feeling frustrated because we've been giving them the runaround, right? So then, not to jump into relate, but so with those two things, I can address that, and then that's when we get to the relate of like, hey, you know what? You sound frustrated because you've been getting the runaround. That drives me crazy too.
Yeah.
And so that is the relate piece, and you can tell when you hit the relate like nail on the head when there's that kind of silence of like, yeah, that's it, right? Like you got me. And so I know I just skipped ahead a little bit from the curiosity, but in a normal situation, let's be honest, the reaction would probably be like, I'm really sorry. Yeah, normally we don't do that. I'm sorry, but I'll go ahead and take care of the refund. And this is one of those other things too that I think this is such an opportunity for businesses, for customer facing folks that yeah, you can give them the refund or you can say to me, hey, you know what? This is frustrating. And man, we have been giving you the runaround. And I know your time's important. So I'm Erin. I'm going to take care of this for you. We're going to get to the bottom of this. And then I'm thinking, oh, okay. And what are you feeling there? oh, actually care. She actually
Right.
listened to me. And I think the care and that, so that's the ownership statement too, which I get going on as well. And that's that simple. Before we fix, before we do anything, it's just that, hey, I'm Erin. We're gonna figure this out. And it's not even, I'm gonna refund it for you. Hey, I'm Erin.
Right.
I'm here for you. We're gonna be
Yeah.
with you. We're gonna be with you on the journey. We're gonna get to the bottom of this. And it's that shoulder up of like, oh, they heard me and now they feel me. I'm in good hands. Um, and man, is it like I get it's so simple in some ways, right? Like it's so simple. And it's also interesting because when I teach in some workshops, people are always like, no one has time for this. No one wants to hear this. And I'm like, oh, well, how's it working out for you now? Right? Like, how's it
Right.
working out for you now? Zero JD Power score, right? So, like, it doesn't take a lot of time. It really doesn't. It just takes being present and acknowledging what they're actually going through, you know?
Yeah. So as you're talking, it makes me think. I worked with a client who had a policy, and can't remember exactly what the situation was, but what it boiled down to is they were going to refund this payment, but this is all like external and the customer's not in front of you. But the person who initially took the call, like the front customer facing person, was like, well, this is our policy. This is what we do. It'll take 2 to 4 days for they're giving them the refund. Like it'll take 2 to 4 days for that to come through. And then for some reason, because of the situation, it was real important. And they just mentioned it to their manager. Well, it got kicked way up the organization. And they said, okay, we know that's our policy. And typically, yes, that's the way it should work. It was like a Friday afternoon. They're like, this person should really have their money today. And so what do we have to do? And they're like, oh, it's real easy. We can just send a wire and send them their money. And okay, well, let's do that. The disconnect, I think, is a lot of times, and you mentioned ownership, um, the frontline person is like, all I can do is follow policy. And then they kick it up the chain, and management makes those decisions of what we can really do. Talk a little bit about that disconnect between that frontline employee facing person and it getting kicked up the line.
For those of you not watching on video, the look on my face is like, oh my God, don't even get me going, my friends. Like the Jersey attitude is coming out. Because it's such a waste of time, right? It is such a waste of time and resources to let me go get my manager, right? Empower your people. And I mean that word can kind of make me roll my eyes too, but it's empowering them in a way, first of all, to give them these skills, right? So let me go with the lens of like not straight aggravation at the laziness, but like actual compassion, right? And I do have some of that. That it takes some training, and
Yeah.
I mean, again, not to be like cliche of like, yeah, none of us know how to listen anymore, social media, phones, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's true, right? But I'm trying not to state the obvious these days. So yeah, we're not that great at listening. So it's teaching your people first, like what they're actually looking for and how to listen, right? And I think for the frontline people, I think a lot of times people don't want to quote unquote get in trouble or get it wrong,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so they're like, let me go get my manager. Well, you can listen, right? You can solve the problems. And I think the thing is too is like, yeah, what do they really want? And we can talk about the free phenomenon too when we get to the elevate piece of like just giving people free stuff to get them out of their face doesn't work, right? It's like another missed
Right.
opportunity. But I think there's sometimes that yes, and like again, one of my least favorite phrases when people are like, that's above my pay grade. I'm like, what are you
Yeah.
doing, dude? Like, what does that
Right.
mean? That's like when someone says that, I'm like, oh, tell me more about your culture of disempowerment and micromanagement. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's
Right.
such an indicator. And so I think A, it's equipping people with the tools to feel confident and handling it, right? And then B, as leaders, I mean, this is also when I learned in that restaurant management job, the day that I learned to delegate, or like the day that I learned that I actually wanted to go on a vacation for once in my lifetime and that I was going to have to leave and things would happen on a shift that I wasn't on. I mean, it was crazy, but like when we realize that other people can make things happen as leaders and as managers, when we let go and let them do it, again, unless it's like life or death situation,
Yeah.
how badly can someone screw up? You know what I mean? So
Right.
I think it's giving people the chance to try. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of. I also think now I'll go back to being cynical, right? It's like, let me talk to my manager. Like, you're just being lazy, right? Like, you're just being lazy.
I always say that, um, when it comes to delegation, those kinds of, and creating that culture where people can do what they need to do, and people are always like, well, they might make a mistake. But I'm like, these are usually people who like they've bought a car, they own a house, they figured out how to buy a house and the mortgage for all that, and they do all of these important things in their life, but we don't think they can handle these simple interactions. We don't trust them to because they may not handle it the same way we do, and so we get very concerned about that when I think it's a overblown concern.
Yes. And I also am a big proponent of giving guidelines, right? Like,
Right. Right.
here are in the Elevate piece, we talk about giving options. And in the workshops that I teach, part of it is let's come up with options for when these situations happen. When the go-to situations happen, what are some things that you can offer to them, right? And so they have that in that back pocket. And right, or like up to this many dollars, do what you need to do. And so I do think that it is important to give people some structure and some guidelines. Because if not, right, like they might not know what the accurate situation is.
Yeah.
But again, once we get to the elevate piece, if you're deflating, relating, and elevating, you will know what the actual problem is, so you'll know what to solve for, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what empowerment really is. Empowerment isn't, hey, you have the freedom to do whatever you want to do. But hey, I sold the business today. It's empowerment within these constraints, right? They have to know how far around the box they can move. Okay,
I think
let's
it's
get
like,
to go ahead.
sorry, just like it's empowerment to take ownership, right? It's I feel
Right.
like maybe it's even more ownership than it is empowerment because it's that
Yeah.
ownership to be like, hey, I've got the tools, I've got the resources, I've got the brain in my head. Like I can figure out what the solution is to this for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so deflate or relate, or sorry, deflate is that curiosity and it's getting information and learning from them what's going on. And then you go to relate. And this is where you talk about empathy, and I love that. Let's talk about what relating looks like.
So this is I mean, I think we talk about empathy, everyone always says, "Oh, it's walking in someone's shoes." And I have been known in my workshops and my keynotes in front of large audiences. This is also why I have to disclaim I'm from New Jersey because I will talk about this and then I'll say, okay, everyone, we're going to do an exercise when we practice empathy. So in just a minute, I'm going to have you slide off your shoes and I'm going to have you pass them to the person on your left. And the reactions range from like people looking at me like I just like punched them in the face to like, and there's normally this little like, it starts
Yeah.
off as this little laughter and this like laughter that I have to stop talking. And I'm like, why are you guys laughing? It's not funny. And then I'm like, of course it's funny and it's gross. I'm not going to make you do that. Eh, But the thing is, and it is funny because I'm like, we throw that cliche around, right? Like, how many times have you heard it? But the second that you actually thought about doing it, it grossed you out. And so, jokes aside, there's so much power and I don't know if power is the right word, but we'll just go with it for now of empathy, right? Like, and
Yeah.
there's so much effort. Empathy requires effort.
Yeah.
And I think the big misunderstanding and what I want, like what I try to teach is that it's not standing in their shoes, it's standing next to them, right? Like it's standing
Right.
next to them. It's like me with the people from Western North Carolina. I'm never gonna know what it was like to like be born in Western North Carolina, but I can stand next to them and be like, tell me about your experience, right? And I
Right.
think that's what empathy is. It's like it's understanding their experience and it's believing them. And in this case, when it comes to the customer service side of things, it's acknowledging that feeling out loud, right? Like it's acknowledging, like we just did in that example, right? Like how are they feeling? Oh, I can tell you're frustrated. I can tell this is really aggravating. And so when we feel before we fix, that is making that person feel heard and feel understood. That's when their shoulders drop and they're like, "Oh, they heard me and they care about me." And that's
Yeah.
when we got them in that zone, then it's like, all right, the rest is gravy, you know? Yeah,
Right.
so that's the relate piece of really feeling before you fix.
So the part I quote all the time is anytime empathy comes up, I say, I have this friend, Erin O'Malley, and she talks about how empathy, usually people say it's like walking in someone else's shoes. And she says, ooh, gross, no, we don't want to do that. But we can. And by the way, not only, and I think I got this from you, not only can we not even talk about walking in someone else's shoes, I think they get freaked out or annoyed when we say, "Hey, I want to, walk in your shoes or whatever." It's like you can't. You literally cannot do it. So I love the idea of I can't walk in your shoes, but I can walk alongside you and listen. And that's where you get to the part where you're able to feel, which is really what empathy is about. It's not the fixing part, it's the relating, it's understanding. And
Yep.
maybe understanding is not even the right word. It's helping them be heard,
I think
feel
it's
heard.
mostly, and I think it's the acknowledging that feeling out loud. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and understanding can get, it's interesting because I used to be like, it's understanding, but then sometimes like open can of worms, right? Like politics right now. I don't know that I could other actually understand the person on the other side for me, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so, and with that, I'm like, I'm never going to understand them, so I'm not going to try, right?
Yeah.
But I can acknowledge their experience. I can acknowledge how they're feeling. And so that, right, like, so that makes me be able to stand next to them as opposed to this, the across the counter back and forth, right? And so,
Right.
yeah, because
Right.
sometimes I sometimes like things are not understandable, right? So it's very interesting. And you know what? Sometimes I'm like, Erin, you're being too heavy-handed with this. But then I also think about it's what you just said, right? Like and I use the example, like you can never know, like a male could never know what it's like to be a female in the boardroom.
Right.
You know? You just can't. And I can't know what it's like to be like a middle-aged white dude. I can't. But I can imagine, right? Or I can ask you about that. And I think that's the drum I beat. It's like the effort of empathy. And this is probably a little bit deeper. Like we don't, I mean, in a customer service situation, like we're probably going a little bit deeper than a customer service situation right now. But the concept is the same, is acknowledging how that person, and I always think of like healthcare examples. Like what are they really like, what's really going on for those people? They're nervous, right? They're scared. Like
Right.
they're scared about their sick parent. Like they're overwhelmed by the insurance, And so acknowledging like this is a fraught time, or like this can be very overwhelming. Just it's that ease, it's that sigh out, and
Yeah.
that's bringing it back to the customer service side of things. It's just making that, when you can make people feel heard, again, when does that happen? Like it's such a competitive
Yeah.
advantage to
Yeah.
bring empathy to business, just like having that
Right.
feeling of like, yeah, they didn't just try and fix me or solve my problem, they actually care about me.
Yeah. I love that. What you said is we can ask. And that's the key. And you can't really get to empathy without asking, because otherwise you're making assumptions. And so
Right.
it's the ask. You have to ask, what is it? What's happening? What are you feeling right now? What's important to you? You have to, whatever the appropriate questions are for the situation, you have to ask those questions, because otherwise you're making assumptions.
Yeah. That
Okay.
gets us in trouble.
Deflate, relate, and now we like to take a pause and do what we call the music minute, and
Oh,
then we'll
dang.
get to elevate. I believe you can get to know people better by just asking them what kind of music they like. So, Aaron, what are maybe some of your favorite artists or songs or maybe concerts, whatever? Just what kind of music does Aaron enjoy?
Well, my first concert I ever went to was George Michael Faith at the Meadowlands in 1988. So, I mean, if that's
Wow.
on, yeah, I mean,
It's
so good.
downhill from there, really. I
I mean,
mean,
yeah,
wow.
I peaked in eighth grade. Um, one of my other like obsessive, which is extreme, is Amos Lee. Do you know Amos Lee?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Kind of blues.
that like bluesy,
Yeah,
soul-y,
yeah,
jazzy.
yeah.
We saw him at my brother got us tickets to his concert here and at the Florida Theater. And my husband and I went, and I remember walking out of the theater, like buying all of his albums on iTunes. And I'm like, Erin, you can get music for free, but like I was obsessed. And I've seen him like 5 or 6 times, and he's like the most unknown. It's fun. You go to one of his concerts, and you've got the people that are like, have you seen him before? Like he's the best. And then you have people that are like, who is this guy? And then they leave and they're like, that was the best show I've ever seen, you know? So he's this like unknown wonder. So I definitely like me some Amos Lee. And then I know this is a minute, but I can never say anything in a minute. So I'll just say that I went to college from 92 to 96. And we happened to be like flipping through the channels last night, and Nelly was on the iHeart Radio Awards or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm very much like the 90s, like Snoop, Dre, like though like the Super
yeah,
Bowl show a few years ago. I was like,
yeah, yeah,
my husband was like, you need to calm down because it was the best. So that's definitely like that vibe there is also just part of so much of my like college years. So there's a little bit of a spectrum. It's kind of all over the place, but those
yeah.
we'll stick with those three.
Yeah, I still believe the Prince Super Bowl halftime was the best, but it's interesting when you like get online and listen to people like, what was the best halftime? There are a bunch of people who that Dr. Dre and group um halftime, there are a lot of people who say that was their favorite ever. And that is the power of that music and that time, I think
So
was really influential.
yeah, like I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
so good.
yeah. And it was I enjoyed it. I didn't really listen to that music, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great performance. Okay, do you have any like a favorite song or anything? Some people do, some people don't.
I definitely have like my go-to. Okay, I as part of my I do this with my groups. I have them come up with their happy songs because I have this like never fails list. And so it's my list of things that like never fails when I want to punch someone or I'm in a funk or I'm in a mood. Like I do these things and
Yeah,
it never fails. I think it came around COVID time. And so like getting on the yoga mat never fails. Staring at the ocean never fails. And like listening to music never fails. And so
yeah.
I can't believe I'm about to admit this to you, but like my go-to never fails happy song, yeah, so I'll have my groups do it and like create a playlist for them so they can all be uplifting each other.
All right.
Is Can't believe I'm about to say this. Is Mbop by Hanson, which is the worst but best song that ever existed.
Hey, Tulsa boys, they're from Tulsa.
Really?
And yeah, yeah, they're from Tulsa. They're like really famous, like they're still going, performing and all that, and they're really huge in like the community. And so the Tulsa community is like Hanson is like really a big deal still. And great song. I mean, what a fun song.
You
It's
just
just fun.
also like when you listen to the, soulful lyrics, like because in the Mbop you're gone. It's also like seize the day, you know? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I dare anyone to listen to that song, and even if you hate it, it'll still put a smile on your face.
So it's almost like your guilty pleasure. Okay, we're going to move on, but I will still tell you my guilty pleasure song. I've got a couple of it, two main guilty pleasure songs. Take a Chance on Me by ABBA.
Okay.
It's
Yes.
just take a chance. It's just fun. And then Captain and Tennille, Love Will Keep Us Together.
That is a good like that's
That
like
song
if
goes
you see my
hard.
face. Yeah, that's good. That
Yeah,
is like you can't that's one of those ones that now I'm like bopping along to it. That's got such a good beat. Yeah.
yeah. Such a great
We
song.
could outsong each other for days, I feel like.
I know. I need to do a podcast just about music. I've thought about it before, but anyway.
So good.
Okay. Play, we want to let them get it out. Relate, we want to listen with empathy. We can't walk in their shoes, but we can walk alongside them. We really need to listen, find out what the actual issue is, then elevate. How do we elevate?
So elevate again, I feel like that ownership statement that we talked about is like this is like you when like, hey, I'm Aaron, we're gonna figure this out. Then it's asking questions. It's so what can we do to make this better? What can we do, right? Like, how can we get this sorted out for you? And people are always like, well, what if they say, like, we want our entire hotel room stay for free? And I'm like,
Yeah,
listen, if they're asking you for a bunch of free stuff, you haven't deflated and you haven't related because they haven't felt heard and they haven't felt understood. So they're going to be like, screw you, buddy. I'm going to keep asking you for stuff, you know?
yeah, yeah,
And so I think And again, sometimes if you don't have what they want, right? Like you're out of chocolate cake, you're not going to be like, what can we do to
Yeah.
make this better? Like give me some
Right. No.
chocolate cake. Like set yourself up for success, people, right? Like we
Yeah.
have this or we have this. Giving options and having those options in the back or actually top of mind, I think is so important for any sort of conversation, right? Of like,
Yeah.
hey, what can we do? Will this work or will this work? And again, going back to that example of, we know we've given you the runaround and we don't want to waste your time. So I can get you a refund. I can give you, I mean, this is kind of a dumb example, but work with me, right? Like I can give you cash right now, or we can put it back on your credit card account. Which one of those is going to work for you? And I'm like,
Yeah.
just put it back on the account, right? Like
Yeah.
we heard why they are upset. We're wasting their time. So what can I do to solve it? Stop wasting their time and give them their money back, right? Like it's almost like if we do those first two steps, the answer becomes real clear real fast. Um, yeah.
As, as you're talking, it's making me think. My very first guest on this show was Linda Clark, who's just brilliant. And I remember, well, I'm attributing it to her now. I'm not sure it was her. It may have been Marlene Chisholm, one of the two, or maybe both of them. Talked about the idea that, especially like, well, I think of like travel. Like, there's nothing worse I hate than an airport. And then, like, you travel and then you get to the hotel and things are messed up. It's not about the thing that's messed up as it is, I've had a lousy day getting here. And people often blow up on customer service people because they're not married to them, right? I can't blow up on my husband because, I got to see him tomorrow. I can't blow up on my kids because I got to raise them right to be healthy, well-adjusted people. But I don't know you. And all of my frustration, whether they're doing this consciously or subconsciously, it's like, I can blow up at you because you don't matter to me. And I
Yes.
think customer service people get that a lot. They're getting residual anger or residual hostility, and so I think that's like sometimes it's the situation, and sometimes it's something else.
No, but David, that's exactly what that red balloon analogy comes from because it's like all of the stuff, you know? And I was on that project with Avis Budget Rental Car, and that's exactly what it was. And I'm like, it's not about you guys. They've been on the plane, they've been at the airport, right? Like they're
Yeah,
sitting next to some jackass that's like talking to them the whole time, even though they have their AirPods in, right? Like
right,
I'm
right,
like, it is not about the car, it is about everything else. And so I'm always like, you got to be like Beyonce's hair in a video, right? And that's what it is. It's like letting all of that stuff about their kids and their day and all of that. So it's like you're listening for like, okay, yeah, these people are tired and over it. So I'm not going to ask them, oh, like, do you want to hear about our breakfast special? No, you're going to be like, here's the key to your room. Like, I'm gonna send the bellman up right now with like your hot like a your tea kettle so you can make your hot tea or whatever it is, right?
right,
And we're
right.
going to get you settled in. And I think that's exactly what so much of this is. It's not about what you think it is, right? It's about like all the other crap and you're on the other end of it. And so it's interesting too because it's hard in the customer service like to have the front like you're like okay it's it's abusive sometimes, you know? And so I think that's where the deflating comes in too, that I'm helping people be like, listen, it's not about you. You got to let most of
Right.
that stuff just like blow by your shoulders, you know? Because and again, my favorite going back to like when you do this right and someone comes up to you either in that moment or sometimes I just used to think about like they were driving home from the restaurant thinking, I was kind of a jerk to that woman, but man, she was really cool. Like she was nice
Yeah.
and she was thoughtful, you know. So you don't always hear it, but in my mind, the story I make up is that they're appreciating the care and the calm. And please, I have lost my temper, I don't know, once or a thousand times, and I have gone back and been like, I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was that person. It wasn't you. I'm sorry, you know. And it happened. Again, this is why I talk about deflate, relate, elevate incessantly because this stuff happens, you know?
Yeah.
It really does.
I've I've found that like I'm on the phone and I can't get what I need with some service person on the phone or whatever. And when I notice that I'm getting hostile, I say a lot, listen, I understand it's not you, but your company who you represent is, creating this situation. So how you're the one on the phone, so how are you going to fix it for me?
And that's, I mean, that's, oh God, it's so hard for those frontline people, right? Of like
Absolutely.
having to read the scripts and like, I mean, I'm like, throw the scripts away, but what if they say something wrong? Well, what if you train them to listen, Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's just they're exhausted too, right? And they like I just can't imagine those people that have to sit there and read through them because it's just they're in such a tough spot and I feel like the managers, the leaders are doing a disservice by not showing them how to listen to people, right? And just to
Yeah.
be human with people. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. So here's what people can do to fix this in their organization. They can bring Erin in and she can train them. She can do this workshop, keynote, talk about deflating, relating, and elevate. And you have other great topics that you do as well. But this one I really connected with, and I wanted to talk about it with you. Before we run, we've started this season now, ending with some quick hit questions. But before I ask you those, is there anything else you want to say to wrap this idea up, to tie it up in a bow?
I was just thinking, I talked about the free phenomenon and I mentioned it, and
Yeah,
so I want to answer it in case someone's like, "What's that free phenomenon?" Um,
right,
Basically, it's when people just yeah, oh, your dinner's wrong, have a piece of chocolate cake, or like we'll buy you a round of drinks. And again, if I want a chocolate cake for dinner, which I mean sometimes I do, but like if I want a steak and you're giving me chocolate cake for dinner, I that's not what I want. And I think
yeah,
people are like, oh, well, they can't complain if we give them free stuff. A, yes, they can. And B, like you are just missing out on such an opportunity for that connection, for that people being like, oh, they cared. I mean, this is one of those like research but I actually do think it's true. Like they did do studies that show like if someone screws up and if the company screws up and they turn it around well, the people are more likely to say positive things than if they didn't screw up at all, right? And so like that's again, don't
right.
go start screwing things up, but like there's such an opportunity there. And so I just that giving away stuff for free is never the answer, my friends.
Right, right. I love the idea that it's the opportunity to fix something is really there's a book, I can't remember the name of it, but it's something about a complaint is a gift, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that it really is, we can learn more about our organization, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong when a customer complains. Instead of being irritated, oh, the customer complained, we can say, oh, this is a great moment for us to learn and fix this. And the other thing, I just talked about this with one of the podcast guests a few weeks ago. I can't remember which one, but and I won't tell the whole story, but Dr. Lee Manzer has this Coca-Cola story and it relates to his wife. And the point of the story is you don't get credit for giving the free stuff or the refund or resolving the issue, whatever, if the customer has to beat it out of you. You don't, even if you give them what they want in the end, you don't get the credit. You only get the credit when you make it easy for them.
Yes. Yeah. How are you making people feel? Like that should
Yeah,
be
right.
the driver of everything you do in these customer interactions?
Yeah. Love it. Erin, this has been fun. Okay. Are you ready for the 5 quick questions?
I hope so, but I'm not gonna lie. I don't know why I'm nervous, but I can do it. If one's too hard, I'm gonna pass and make you give me another question, but I can do it. I can do it.
What's the square root? No, I'm just kidding.
My internet connection's breaking up.
If you could only eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Mashed potatoes.
Boy, that was quick and easy. Mashed
I don't know
potato.
why. I think I've been eating a lot of chocolate lately, so I'm kind of off of chocolate, but yeah, mashed potatoes. So good.
Nice. This one is one that I've resisted asking before, but I haven't asked it to anybody yet. People used to actually ask this in interviews. I don't know if people still do, but it's a horrible interview question. If you were an animal, which one would you want to be?
Oh my gosh. Also, why do I have ants? I'm like a tropical fish because I like to wear bright colors, even though today I'm wearing black. But I like to wear bright colors and just I love the ocean and like swimming around, like just like going with the tide and the flow. Definitely a tropical fish.
Nice.
What else
I
you got,
love it.
David? Now I want more questions.
See, that was two. If you had a personal theme song, what would it be? She's thinking, buffering.
A personal theme
Yeah,
song.
I'll tell you mine while you're thinking.
Okay.
I was going to say this. This is a not safe for work answer. I'll say it as well as I can. And if you're listening to this in the car and you got your kids, you might want to either mute it for a second or cover their ears. There's a Sometimes people ask, like, as you know, you do a keynote and someone says, "Hey, do you want us to play a certain song while you're walking up?" You know, the walk up song. And I always answer, and nobody's ever played it. They look at me horrified. I say, "Yeah, Prince, sexy MFer."
Oh, that's good.
There's the whole word, and the song jams. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I am," you know. And so they're like, "Do you have another song? Something else?" So it always makes me laugh just seeing their response.
Wait, so what's the song?
Personal theme song. Oh, mine?
Well, no, I was thinking,
Oh, yeah,
okay,
you're
I'm
answering.
gonna answer. I don't know. I might have to come back and like change this answer, but actually one of the first keynotes I did, what they played Kylie Minogue, Can't Get You Out of My Head. And
Yeah,
I think that's a walk-up song that's so good because I'm like, yeah, you won't be able to get me out of your head, right? And I love Kylie Minogue. So yeah, I'm
yeah.
gonna go with that song for now.
All right, I love it. See, that was three. Okay. That question's too late. What's the last book you read or movie you watched that you really love?
Um, No idea. What movie did I watch? You know what? This wasn't the last one, but I'm going to say it because this is when I knew I was going to fall apart of these questions. Mike and I, the first night it came out, day it came out, we went and saw Wicked, and
Yeah,
I loved it. And yeah, so I'm just going to go with that because that's what's sticking up in my mind. Because I'm one of those people that also don't remember movies. Like, don't
I'm the same way.
when people are like, "Oh, you know the line," and I'm like, "No, I have no record. I can quote Sound of Music. Like that's where I
Yeah,
like that's as far as I can go." Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Wicked because we both really loved it.
yeah, cool. I'm the same way. I can watch a movie and then watch it again 6 months later. I usually don't, but I
Yeah,
can watch it again 6 months later because I don't remember what happened. Although I will say, when I said book or movie, you missed an opportunity to say I just read Modern Leadership by David McLaughlin. So I'm disappointed, but okay.
I
What?
did miss that opportunity.
You did. You missed it hard. That's all right. What's one thing you can't live without? And you can't say oxygen or something.
Um, I honestly feel like the ocean.
Mm, that's a good one.
I mean, I really and I pinch myself because like we live a block from the ocean now in Florida, and like I mean I'm there every day, and it just what it
Yeah,
does for my mental health and just like I said, growing up sailing, like there's just always a connection to water. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's gonna be my final answer on that one.
I love it. There's research that talks about how people who live near water, like it's physiologically beneficial to them. So I'm an absolute believer in that. Erin, this has been fun. If people want to contact you and have you come speak for them, consult with them, whatever, how do they get a hold of you?
You can email me at aaron@aaronomalley.com. There is an M in between the Aaron and the O'Malley. And so that's the best way to shoot me an email. I'm on LinkedIn and my website is the same, aaronomalley.com. And that's where you can find my goods.
Perfect. Erin, thank you so much. This has been a blast.
I'm giving you a fuerte aplauso. It was so awesome, David. I always love chatting with you. So thank you so much for having me.
Same. Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
I'm sure you had so much fun listening to Erin O'Malley. She is fantastic. You can go check her out at her website, erinmomalley.com. You can connect with her on LinkedIn. Let her know you heard her on the Modern Leader podcast. She is fantastic. She can help you and your organization out with a lot of your communication needs. I want to thank you for joining us today, and we will see you next week on The Modern Leader.